Imagine it is the year 1327. The mist has not lifted for 3 days, and the heather is wet as a sponge beneath your boots. You have been walking since dawn, following a path that is older than the memory of any living soul. A track of trampled grass and exposed stone that winds through the hills like a thread pulled loose from the fabric of the world. The air smells of peat smoke and salt, though you have not seen the sea yet, and the wind comes from the west, cold and damp, carrying the sound of waves that you cannot see. Your cloak is soaked through, and the wool chafes against your neck, and your satchel, heavy with a loaf of bread and a letter of introduction from the Bishop of Dunkeld, bounces against your hip with each step. You who've been walking for 3 days. The first day took you through the lowlands, past farms and villages, where the people stared at you as if you were a ghost. The second day brought you into the hills, where the farms thinned and then disappeared, replaced by empty moorland and the disappeared, replaced by empty moorland and the distant cry of curlews. The third day has been nothing but mist and heather and the slow, steady climb toward a place you have never seen, a place you know only from the bishop's description, an abbey of grey stone nestled between a loch and a mountain, where the monks pray and work and keep silence. You are going there because there is nowhere else to go, because the city has grown too loud, because the life you knew has become a burden you can no longer carry. You do not know if the abbey will take you. You do not know if you will stay. You only know that you will stay. You only know that you cannot go back. The mist lifts suddenly, as if a curtain has been pulled aside. One moment you are walking in a world of grey and white, and the next you can see for miles. The hills roll away beneath you, covered in heather that is brown and purple. And far below, at the end of a long valley, you see the loch. It is dark, almost black, reflecting the clouds like a mirror of polished slate, and on its northern shore, huddled against the base of a mountain that rises sheer and forbidding, you see the abbey. It is smaller than you imagined. The buildings are made of dark stone, the same grey as the cliffs behind them, and they seem to grow out of the earth rather than having been built upon it. There is a church with a round tower, the roof made of slate, the windows narrow and unadorned. There is a cloister attached to the south side, and beyond it, a range of buildings that must be the refectory, the kitchen, the dormitory. A wall surrounds the whole complex, not high enough to keep out an army, but high enough to keep out the wind. And at the center of the wall, facing the loch, there is a gate. You stop and stand at the edge of the hill, looking down at the abbey. The wind is strong here, and it pushes against your back as if urging you forward. You can hear the bell now. A single note struck again and again. The sound carried to you across the valley, thin and silver, like a thread of light in the grey. You do not know what the bell means. It could be calling the monks to prayer, or it could be a warning, or it could be nothing at all, just the wind playing tricks on your ears. But you listen, and the bell calls, and you walk toward it. The path descends steeply, switchbacking across the face of the hill. Your boots slip on the wet grass and you brace yourself with your staff, a branch of hazel that you cut from a hedgerow on the second day. The loch grows larger as you descend, and you can see the waves now, small and dark, lapping against a shingle beach. The abbey grows larger too, the stones taking on texture, the windows revealing themselves as openings in the solid walls. You see a figure moving along the cloister walk, a small shape in a dark habit, and then another. And then the bell stops, and the silence rushes in. The gate is oak, studded with iron nails, and the wood is dark with age and damp. There is no handle on the outside, only a small iron ring that you lift and let fall, the clank of it echoing in the courtyard beyond. You wait. The wind blows, and the mist begins to roll back in, filling the valley with a soft grey blanket. You wait. You hear footsteps on stone, slow and deliberate, and then a small door within the great door opens and a face appears. It is an old face, weathered and lined, the eyes pale blue, the beard white and cropped close. The man wears a black habit with a hood pulled back, and he looks at you for a long time without speaking. His eyes move from your face to your satchels to your worn boots, and then back to your face. He says, "You are the one from Dunkeld. The bishop sent word." You nod, and you hold out the letter. He takes it, reads it, and then he opens the great door and steps aside. The courtyard is paved with flagstones, worn smooth by centuries of sandals. A well stands in the centre, its stone rim carved with a cross, and a single tree, a rowan, grows beside it, its branches bent by the wind. The buildings are arranged around the courtyard, their walls whitewashed, their roofs sloped and grey. You follow the old man across the courtyard and through a low arch into a covered walkway, the cloister. The stone floor is damp, and the arches that open onto a small garden are filled with the grey light of the afternoon. The garden is bare at this season. Nothing but dark earth and the brown stalks of last year's herbs. But you can see the rows where vegetables will grow, and you can smell the soil, rich and wet. The old man leads you to a wooden door, opens it, and gestures for you to enter. The room is small, a cell, with a narrow bed of wooden planks, a straw mattress, a single blanket folded at the foot, and a small window high in the wall that looks out of the loch. There is a wooden cross hanging above the bed, and a shelf with a clay pitcher and a basin. The old man points to the bed, then to the window, then to the door, and then he leaves, closing it behind him without a sound. You sit on the edge of the bed. The straw rustles beneath you, and the blanket smells of wool and peat smoke. You are alone. The silence is not the silence of the hills, which is full of wind and birds and the rustle of heather. It is a deeper silence, a silence that has been worn smooth by centuries of prayer, a silence that seems to listen to you even as you listen to it. You lie down on the mattress, still in your wet clothes, and you stare at the wooden cross. You do not pray. You are too tired to pray. You have walked for 3 days, and your feet ache, and your stomach is hollow, and your eyes are heavy. You close them, and you sleep. The bell wakes you. It is not the tapping bell you heard from the hill. This bell is larger, deeper, its voice rolling through the stone walls like thunder. You sit up, disoriented, not knowing if it is night or day, not knowing where you are. The window is dark. The only light comes from a crack under the door. The bell rings again, and then again, a slow rhythm, and you hear footsteps in the corridor, the shuffle of many feet moving in the same direction. You stand, smooth your tunic, and open the door. The corridor is filled with monks, dozens of them, all wearing the same black habit, all with hoods pulled up, all moving toward the end of the corridor, where a larger door stands open. You follow them because there is nothing else to do. You do not know where they are going, but their feet know, and your feet follow, and soon you are in a church, a stone church with pillars that rise into shadows, with candles burning on the altar, with the smell of incense and old wood and something else, something that might be the smell of 1,000 nights of prayer. The monks take their places in wooden stalls that line the walls, and you stand at the back, uncertain, your hands folded in front of you. A candle burns beside you, and you watch the flame flicker in a draught that you cannot feel. Then the bell stops, and the silence rushes in, and an old monk steps to the center of the choir and begins to sing. His voice is thin, reedy, but it fills the church, rising up into the shadows, and the other monks join him, their voices weaving together into something that is not quite music and not quite speech, but something in between, something that has been sung here every night for 100 years, something that will be sung here every night for 100 more. You do not know the words. You do not know the melody, but you stand in the back of the church, the candle flickering beside you, and you listen. The voices rise and fall, the psalms unfolding, the verses echoing off the stone, and you feel something that you have not felt in a long time. It is not peace, not yet. It is the absence of the noise that has been in your head for weeks, the arguing and the doubt and the fear. For a few minutes, there is only the sound of the monks singing, and you are part of it, even though you do not sing, even though you do not know the words. You are there, and they are there, and the bell called you both, and that is enough. The office ends as quietly as it began. The last note fades, and the monks file out of the church, their feet silent on the stone, their shadows long in the candlelight. You follow them back to the corridor, and the old man who opened the gate is waiting at your cell. He points to the bed, then to the window, then to the door, and then he is gone. You go inside, close the door, and lie down on the mattress. The straw rustles. The blanket smells of wool and peat smoke. The wooden cross hangs above you, and you look at it, and you wonder if you will ever learn to pray, Outside, the bell rings again. It is a different bell, softer, higher, a single note that hangs in the air like a question. You count the strokes. There are 9 of them, and then silence. You do not know what they mean. You do not know what comes next, but you are tired, and the mattress is hard, and the blanket is thin, and the silence is deep, and you close your eyes, and you sleep. In the morning, you wake to light. It is grey light, the light of a cloudy day, filtering through the small window high in the wall. You sit up, and your back aches from the hard mattress, and your neck is stiff from the pillow that is not a pillow, but a rolled-up cloth. You are hungry. You are thirsty. You are not sure where to find food or water or anything. You sit on the edge of the bed, your feet on the cold stone floor, and you wait. The door opens without a knock. The old man is there, the one who opened the gate, and he carries a tray with a wooden bowl, a wooden spoon, and a cup. He sets it on the shelf beside the pitcher and the basin, and he gestures for you to eat. The bowl contains porridge, thick and grey, made from barley or oats. You cannot tell. The cup contains water, cool and clean. You eat quickly, the spoon scraping the wood, the porridge warm in your stomach. The old man watches you, his face unreadable, his hands folded in his sleeves. When you are finished, he takes the tray and gestures for you to follow. He leads you through the corridor, past the church, past a door that opens into a garden, past another door that opens into a courtyard with a fountain. You stop at a door at the end of a short hall, and the old man knocks. A voice from inside says, "Enter." The old man opens the door and gestures for you to go in. The room is small, smaller than your cell, with a desk and a chair and shelves of books. The man sitting at the desk is not old, not young. His face smooth, his hair brown, his eyes tired. He wears the same black habit as the others, but his hood is down, and a wooden cross hangs from a leather cord around his neck. He looks at you for a long time, his eyes moving from your face to your hands to your worn boots. He says, "You are the one from Dunkeld. The bishop wrote to us. He said you have been a scribe. He said you can read." You nod. He says, "You can read." You nod. He says, "Reading is a gift. Here, it is a duty. Do you understand?" You nod again, though you are not sure you do. He says, "I am the abbot. For 1 year, you will be a novice. You will pray with us, work with us, eat with us, sleep in the cell you were given. You will speak only when spoken to. You will learn the rule of Saint Benedict. At the end of the year, you will decide whether to take your vows. Do you understand?" You say, "Yes, abbot." He says, "Good. Go to the church. It is almost time for terce. Follow the others. Watch. Listen. Say nothing." He gestures to the door, and you go. You find the church without getting lost, because the corridor is straight and the door is open, and the candles are lit. The monks are already in their stalls, and you stand at the back, the same place you stood last night, your hands folded, your eyes on the altar. The bell rings, and the abbot enters, and the chanting begins. It is the same chant, the same psalms, the same weaving of voices, but the light is different, grey instead of gold, and you are more awake, and you listen differently. You listen for the words, for the shape of them, for the way they rise and fall. You do not understand the Latin, but you hear the rhythm, the pulse of it, the way it breathes, and you think that maybe, in time, you will learn to breathe with it. The office ends, and the monks file out. You follow them to a large room with long wooden tables and benches, the refectory, and you take a seat at the end of one of the tables. A monk places a piece of bread and a cup of water in front of you. Another monk stands at a lectern and begins to read, his voice low and steady, the words flowing like water. You eat your bread, you drink your water, and you listen. You do not know what he is reading. It is Latin, and it is fast, and you are tired, and your mind drifts. You think of the loch, dark and still, reflecting the clouds. You think of the mist, rolling in from the sea, wrapping the hills in grey. You think of the bell that woke you in the night, the voice that sang in the dark, the silence that followed. You think of the abbot, his tired eyes, his words. 1 year. Pray. Work. Silence. The reading ends, and the monks stand. You stand with them. You follow them out of the refectory, down the corridor, past the church, to a door that opens into the cloister. The monks disperse, some going into the garden, some into the scriptorium, some into the church. The abbot appears beside you. He says, "You will work in the garden this morning. Brother Finan will teach you. Follow him." He points to a monk with a round face and red cheeks who is already walking toward the garden gate. You follow. The garden is smaller than you expected, a square of earth enclosed by high stone walls that block the wind. The beds are raised, the soil dark and rich, and you can see the first green shoots of onions and leeks pushing through the surface. Brother Finan hands you a trowel and points to a bed of herbs. "Pull the weeds," he says. "Leave the herbs." You kneel in the soil, the cold seeping through your trousers, and you begin to pull. The weeds come out easily, their roots shallow, their leaves soft. You work slowly, carefully, not wanting to pull an herb by mistake. Brother Finan works beside you, humming a tune you do not recognize, his hands moving quickly. Surely the weeds piling up beside him. He does not speak. You do not speak. The only sounds are the scrape of the trowel, the rustle of leaves, the distant cry of a gull, and the bell that rings every hour, marking the time, marking the day, marking the life you have chosen. At midday, the bell rings for sext. You leave the garden, wash your hands in a stone basin, and go to the church. The chant is the same, but you are beginning to hear the differences, the way the psalms change, the way the responses vary. You stand at the back, your hands folded, your eyes on the altar, and you listen. You do not pray, but you listen, and the listening is a kind of prayer, a kind of letting go, a kind of being here, in this place, at this time, with these men who have chosen to spend their lives in silence and song. The afternoon is spent in the scriptorium, though you do not write. The abbot shows you the desks, the slanted wood, the pots of ink, the stacks of parchment. He shows you the books, the heavy volumes bound in leather and wood, the pages filled with letters so small and even that they seem to have been printed rather than written. He says, "You will learn to write, but first, you will learn to see." He hands you a page of ruled parchment and a quill that has not been cut. Sharpen the quill, rule the lines, then wait. He leaves you at a desk by the window, and you sit, and you sharpen the quill, and you rule the lines, and you wait. The light fades, the bell rings, the monks go to vespers, and you follow. The day ends as it began, with prayer and silence and the slow rhythm of the bells. You eat supper in the refectory, bread and pottage, and a cup of watered ale. You listen to the reading, a passage from the life of St. Columba, his voyage to Iona, his battles with the sea, and the spirits of the north. You do not understand all of it, but you hear the words, and you feel them, and you think that maybe, in time, you will. After compline, the last prayer of the day, you go to your cell. The window is dark, the bed is hard, the blanket is thin. You lie down, and you listen to the silence. It is not empty. It is full of the sound of the loch, the waves lapping against the shore, the wind moving through the heather, the distant cry of a bird you cannot name. You think of the garden, the weeds, the herbs. You think of the scriptorium, the quill, the ruled lines. You think of the church, the candles, the chant. You think of the abbot, and you wonder if he will remember your name in the morning. The bell rings for matins, and you rise in the dark. You find your way to the church without thinking, your feet remembering the path. The monks are already in their stalls, and you stand at the back, and the chant begins. It is the same chant, the same psalms, the same voices, but you are different. You have been here for one day. You have pulled weeds and ruled lines and listened to silence. You have eaten bread and drunk water and slept on a straw mattress. You have heard the bells of the Grey Abbey, and they have begun to mark not just the hours, but the shape of your life. You do not know if you will stay. You do not know if you will take your vows. You do not know if this place will become home or prison or something in between. But you are here, and the chant is rising, and the candles are burning, and the night is long, and you are not alone. You stand in the back of the church, your hands folded, your eyes on the altar, and you listen. And the listening is enough. For now, the listening is enough. You learn the bells before you learn the prayers. There is a bell for everything. A bell to wake you in the dark. A bell to call you to the church. A bell to mark the hours of work. A bell to summon you to the refectory. A bell to send you to your cell. The bells have names, though no one tells you what they are. You learn to recognize them by their voices. The deepest bell rings for vigils in the middle of the night, a sound that seems to come from the very bones of the loch, vibrating up through the stone floor and into your chest. A lighter bell calls you to Lord's at sunrise, its voice thin and silver, like light breaking over the hills. The bell for prime is brisk, insistent, a sound that hurries you out of bed and into the day. Terce is slower, measured, a bell that knows there is time for everything. Sext rings at midday when the sun is high and the shadows are short and you are grateful for the pause. None is the bell of the afternoon, when your back aches from the garden and your eyes blur from the scriptorium, and the sound of it is a promise of rest. Vespers comes at sunset, the bells soft and golden, and Compline, the last bell of the day, is a whisper, a closing of the door, a letting go. You learn the rhythm of the bells the way you learn the rhythm of your own breathing, without thought, without effort, until the day is not measured in hours but in the spaces between the sounds. The monks do not wear watches. They do not need them. The bells are their clock, their calendar, their compass, and you are learning to let the bells guide you too. Vigils comes at 2 in the morning. You know this because the abbot told you, but you have no way to verify it. The sky is black, the stars cold and distant, and the only light in the corridor comes from a single oil lamp that burns at the turn of the stairs. You rise from your mattress before the bell finishes ringing, your feet finding the cold stone floor, your hands finding the woolen habit that you have learned to fold and unfold in the dark. You dress quickly, not because you are in a hurry, but because the cell is cold and the habit is warm, and the sooner you are in the church, the sooner you will forget the chill. The church is dark when you arrive, darker than the corridor, darker than the night outside. The candles on the altar are not lit yet, and the only light comes from a small flame burning in a glass lantern above the lectern. The monks shuffle into their stalls, their habits whispering against the wood, their breath steaming in the cold air. You stand at the back, the same place you have stood every day, your hands folded, your eyes on the darkness where the altar will be when the candles are lit. You do not know why you stand at the back. No one told you to, but the back feels safe, feels like a place where you can watch and learn without being watched, where you can make mistakes without being seen. The bell stops, and the abbot enters, and the candles are lit one by a young monk who moves slowly, reverently, as if each flame is a prayer. The light spreads across the altar, across the faces of the monks, across the pillars and the vaulted ceiling, and the church becomes a different place, a place of gold and shadow, of warmth and mystery. The abbot bows, and the monks bow, and the chant begins. Vigils is the longest office. It can last an hour, sometimes more, depending on the feast, depending on the abbot, depending on the will of God, or the fatigue of the monks. You have learned to stand through it without shifting your weight from one foot to the other, without leaning against the pillar, without closing your eyes. You have learned to hold your psalter with your left hand, while your right hand follows the words, even though you cannot see them in the dim light. You have learned to bow at the right moments, to cross yourself at the right moments, to whisper the doxology even though you do not yet believe it. The psalms are sung in Latin, and your Latin is slow, halting, full of gaps, but you are beginning to recognize the phrases, the ones that repeat, the ones that rise and fall in patterns you can almost predict. Deus in adiutorium meum intende, Domine adjurandum me festina. God, come to my assistance. Lord, make haste to help me. You whisper the words, your lips moving, your voice silent, and the whisper is enough. The whisper is a beginning. Vigils ends, and the monks do not leave. They remain in their stalls, and a second office begins. The office of Lords, which is sung at dawn even when dawn is still hours away. Lords is shorter than Vigils, brighter in tone, filled with psalms of praise and canticles that seem to lift the roof and let in the light. You have learned to love Lords, the way the voices seem to rise toward the unseen sun, the way the darkness seems to soften, the way the candles burn lower and lower until the first grey light appears in the high windows. You leave the church after Lauds, and you go to your cell, and you lie down on your mattress for a few minutes before the bell for prime. You do not sleep. You lie in the dark, staring at the wooden cross, and you listen to the silence. The silence is not the same as the silence of the night. It is a silence that has been filled with chant, with psalms, with the breath of 100 monks, and it is warm, and it is alive, and it holds you the way the habit holds your body. The bell for prime rings, and you rise again. Prime is the office of the first hour of daylight, though in winter the sun has not yet risen. It is short, a few psalms, a hymn, a prayer for the day ahead. The monks stand in their stalls, their faces grey in the candlelight, and they sing with a tiredness that is not a lack of devotion, but a recognition that the night has been long and the day will be longer. You stand with them, and you sing when you know the words, and you listen when you do not, and the office ends, and you go to the chapter house. The chapter house is where the monks gather after prime to hear a reading from the rule of St. Benedict and to confess their faults. You sit on a bench against the wall, your hands in your sleeves, your eyes on the floor. The abbot reads from a large book, his voice slow and deliberate, the Latin words falling like stones into a still pond. You do not understand everything, but you understand enough. Ora et labora. Pray and work. The rule is not a set of commands. It is a way of life, a path through the heather, a hand on your shoulder in the dark. After the reading, the monks speak. One by one, they stand and say what they have done wrong. A monk admits that he fell asleep during vigils. Another confesses that he spoke in the refectory. Another says that he allowed his mind to wander during the reading. The abbot listens, nods, assigns a penance, and the monk sits down. You do not speak. You are not yet a monk. You're a novice, and your faults are your own, and you keep them in the silence of your cell. You go to Terce at 9 in the morning. The sun is up now, the light streaming through the high windows, the dust motes dancing in the beams. Terce is the office of the third hour, and it marks the beginning of the day's work. You stand in the choir and you sing the psalms, and you feel the light on your face, and you think of the garden, of the weeds that need pulling, of the herbs that are almost ready to harvest. The office ends and you go to the garden and you work. Sext comes at midday. You leave the garden, wash your hands and go to the church. The sun is high, the light bright, the shadows short. Sext is a short office, a pause in the middle of the day, a moment to catch your breath, to turn your mind from the work of the hands to the work of the soul. You stand in your place at the back, and you sing, and you listen, and you breathe. None is at 3 in the afternoon. By then you are tired, your back aching, your hands rough from the soil. The church is cool, the light golden, the shadows long. None is the office of the 9th hour, and it prepares you for the end of the day, for the final work before vespers, for the slow descent into evening. You stand in the choir and you sing the psalms of trust, the psalms of waiting, the psalms that say, I have hoped in the Lord, I have hoped in his word. Vespers comes at sunset. The church is dark again, the candles lit, the voices low and rich. Vespers is the office of the evening, and it is your favorite. The psalms are sung with a fullness that the other offices lack, as if the monks are saving their voices for this, the hour when the day ends and the night begins. You stand in the back, and you sing, and you feel the darkness settle around you like a blanket, and you are not afraid. Compline is the last office of the day. It comes after supper, when the light is gone and the stars are out. The monks gather in the church, and they sing the psalms of the night, the psalms of protection, the psalms that ask God to keep them safe until morning. The abbot sprinkles holy water on the beds, and the monks process to their cells, and the bell rings a single note, soft and low, and the day is over. You lie on your mattress, the blanket pulled to your chin, and you listen to the silence. The bells are still. The church is dark. The monks are sleeping. You are awake, and you are tired, and you are grateful. The day has been long, but it has been full, and the hours have been marked by the bells, and the bells have become a kind of music, a kind of prayer, a kind of home. You close your eyes, you do not pray, you do not have the words, but you listen to the silence, and the silence listens to you, and that is enough. That is the beginning. In the morning, the bell will ring for vigils, and you will rise, and you will go to the church, and you will sing the psalms you are beginning to know. The hours will turn, the bells will ring, the day will pass, and you will be here, in this place, at this time, with these men who have chosen to spend their lives in silence and song. You do not know if you will stay. You do not know if you will stay. You do not know if you will take your vows. But for now, the bells are ringing, and you are listening, and the listening is enough. The days begin to blend together, each one folding into the next like the pages of a book that has no end. You wake before dawn. You go to the church. You sing the psalms. You work in the garden. You eat in silence. You copy manuscripts in the scriptorium. You sing vespers. You sleep. The rhythm is slow, repetitive, and your mind drifts as you work. You think of the loch, dark and still, reflecting the clouds. You think of the mist, rolling in from the sea, wrapping the hills in grey. You think of the bells, their voices becoming familiar, their calls becoming commands. One morning, you wake before the bell. The room is dark, the window a square of blackness, and you lie on the mattress, listening to the silence. The silence is not empty. It is full of the sound of your own breathing, the beat of your own heart, the distant lapping of the waves against the shore. You do not know what time it is. You do not know how long you have been here. The days have lost their names, their members, their meaning. There is only the rhythm, the prayer, the work. The bell rings, and you rise. You go to the church, and you stand at the back, and you sing. The words come more easily now, the Latin no longer a wall, but a river, flowing around you, carrying you. You do not understand everything, but you understand enough. Domine, labia mea opres. Lord, open my lips. And you open your lips, and you sing, and the night is long, and the bells are ringing, and you are not alone. The abbot watches you sometimes, his eyes tired, his face unreadable. He does not speak to you except to give instructions. He does not praise you. He does not scold you. He only watches, and you wonder what he sees. A novice who will leave, a novice who will neave, a novice who will neave, a novice who will neave, a novice who will neave. You do not nast, you only work and pray and wait. The garden changes with the weeks. The herbs grow tall, the vegetables swell, the weeds return and are pulled again. Brother Finan hums his tuneless hum, and you learn to hum with him, the sound blending with the wind and the waves. The scriptorium is cold in the mornings, and the ink is thick, and your fingers are stiff. But you write, and the words take shape, and the pages fill. The psalms you copy are the same psalms you sing, and you begin to understand them in a way you never did before. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. The words are not just words, they are the shape of your days, the shape of your life. One evening after Vespers, you stand in the cloister and watch the sun set over the loch. The sky turns from gold to bronze to grey, and the stars appear, and the lamps of the abbey are lit. The wind is cold, and you pull your habit tighter around your shoulders. Brother Colum, the old monk from the scriptorium, comes to stand beside you. He does not speak. He only stands, his hands in his sleeves, his eyes on the water. After a long time, he says, "The loch is deep. No one knows how deep. The monks who came before us said it has no bottom." He pauses, and you wait. He says, "The prayer is like that. You think you have reached the bottom, and then you go deeper, and deeper, and there is no bottom, only God." He turns and walks away, and you are alone with the loch and the stars and the silence. You go to your cell, lie down on the mattress and close your eyes. The bell for Compline rings, and you do not rise. You are too tired. You are too full. The prayer is still in your breath, the psalms still in your ears, the bells still in your bones. You sleep, and you dream of the loch, dark and still, and you are falling, and there is no bottom, and you are not afraid. In the morning the bell rings, and you rise, and you go to the church, and you sing. The scriptorium is at the end of the east cloister, a long room with windows that face the sea. You have climbed the narrow stairs to reach it every morning for a month, And still, your legs remember the weight of the climb, the worn stone steps, the iron latch that lifts with a soft groan. The door is oak, bound with iron, and it swings open on hinges that have not been oiled in living memory. Inside, the room is colder than the cloister, the walls thick, the windows narrow, the light grey and steady. 3 desks are ranged beneath the windows, each one slanted, each one fitted with a ledge for the inkpot and a groove for the quill. The air smells of parchment and leather, of beeswax and dust, of something old and patient that has been waiting here for centuries. The sea is visible from every window. You can see the loch opening into the sound, the dark water flecked with white, the hills of the far shore blue and distant. Gulls circle above the waves, their cries thin and mournful, and the wind carries the smell of salt and seaweed into the room. You have never worked in a place where the sea was so close. In the city, the scriptorium faced an inner courtyard, silent and still. Here, the sea is a presence, a voice, a companion that speaks in whispers and shouts, that never sleeps, that marks the hours in its own way, independent of the bells. Brother Colum is already at his desk when you arrive. He is the oldest monk in the scriptorium, his back bent, his hands gnarled, his eyes pale and watery behind spectacles that he polishes constantly with a piece of soft leather. He has been copying manuscripts for 50 years, longer than you have been alive, and he has forgotten more about the art than you will ever learn. He does not look up when you enter. He does not speak. He only dips his quill and continues the line he was writing, his hand steady despite his age, the letters flowing from his nib like water from a spring. You take your place at the desk beside him. The desk is yours now, the one you have used every day since the abbot assigned you to the scriptorium. The wood is worn smooth in the places where other scribes have rested their wrists, and there is a dark stain near the right corner where someone spilled a pot of ink 100 years ago. You set your ink pot in its hollow, your quill in its groove, and your parchment on the slanted surface. The parchment is ruled with faint lines that Brother Colum taught you to make with a sharp point and a straight edge. The lines are guides for the letters, invisible from a distance but essential up close, the skeleton on which the body of the text will grow. Brother Colum has given you a single page to copy. It is from the Gospel of John, the passage about the light shining in the darkness. Et lux in tenebris, lucet et tenebrae im non comprehenderunt, and the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. You have copied these words 100 times, and still Brother Colum finds something to correct. The curve of your L is too steep. The stem of your U is too wide. The space between your words is uneven. He does not scold you. He does not praise you. He only points to the mistake, and you scrape it away with a knife, and you try again. Today you are determined to get it right. You dip your quill, wipe the excess ink on the rim of the pot, and place the nib on the pot, and place the nib on the parchment. You begin with the E, a straight line with 3 horizontal bars, a letter that requires a steady hand and a careful eye. You make the vertical stroke, then the top bar, the middle bar, the bottom bar. It is not perfect, but it is close. You move to the T, a simple cross, and then to the space, and then to L, the letter that has given you so much trouble. You make the vertical stroke straight, the curve at the top soft, and you think that maybe this time it will be enough. The hours pass. The light moves across the desk, from the left in the morning to the right in the afternoon. You do not notice it. You are absorbed in the letters, in the weight of the quill, in the flow of the ink. The world outside the scriptorium ceases to exist. There is only the parchment, the letters, the words that you are building one stroke at a time. You forget the bells, the garden, the refectory. You forget the abbot and his tired eyes. You forget the loch and the gulls and the wind. You are here, in this room, at this desk, and nothing else matters. Brother Colum clears his throat. You look up, and he is standing beside you, his spectacles catching the light, his eyes examining your work. He points to the loo you were so proud of. Too thin, he says. The stroke should be broader, the curve should be rounder. He takes the quill from your hand and shows you, making an L that is broad and round, the curve soft, the stroke even. Then he hands the quill back to you and says, Try again. You scrape away the offending L with your knife, the fine shavings of parchment curling on the desk. You dip the quill and you try again. This time you make the stroke broader, the curve rounder, and when you finish you look at it and you see that it is better. Not perfect, but better. Brother Colum nods once and returns to his desk. The page takes you the rest of the morning. By the time the bell rings for sext, you have completed it. Et lux in tenebri, non comprederont. The letters are not beautiful. They are not even. They are the work of a beginner, a clumsy hand learning to hold a quill. But they are yours and they are legible, and they say something that you are beginning to understand. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. You do not know if the light is God or faith, or simply the act of sitting at this desk day after day, making the same letters, copying the same words. But you know that the darkness has not overcome you. Not yet. Not here. You leave the scriptorium for sext, and when you return, Brother Colum is gone. In his place is a younger monk, a man you have seen in the choir but never spoken to. He is tall, thin, with dark hair and pale skin, and eyes that seem to look at everything and nothing at once. He is not writing. He is drawing. You watch him from the corner of your eye as you prepare your desk for the afternoon's work. He is working on a page that is not text but image, a picture of a wave curling around the margin of a manuscript, its crest white, its trough dark, its shape both wild and graceful. The colors are bright, even in the grey light of the afternoon, blue for the water, white for the foam, gold for the highlights. He works with a brush so fine that you cannot see the bristles, only the paint flowing from his hand like water. He notices you watching. He does not stop working, but he smiles, a small smile, and he says, "I am Brother Egan." You tell him your name, and he nods. He says, "Brother Colum speaks well of you." He says you are patient. You are not sure if this is a compliment or an observation, but you thank him anyway. He says, "Patience is the most important thing in the scriptorium, more important than skill, more important than speed. A scribe without patience is like a quill without ink. He can scratch the parchment, but he cannot write." You do not know what to say, so you say nothing. You dip your quill and begin to rule the lines for the afternoon's work. Brother Eogan watches you for a moment, then returns to his wave. The silence in the scriptorium is not the silence of the church, which is full of echoes and shadows. It is a working silence, a silence of concentration, of focus, of men who have forgotten to speak because they are too busy creating something that will outlast them. Brother Eogan finishes his wave and begins a bird, a small seabird perched on a rock, its beak open as if calling. You watch him paint the feathers, one by one, each stroke of the brush laying down a layer of color so thin that it seems to be part of the parchment rather than sitting on top of it. He adds a touch of gold to the bird's eye, and suddenly the bird is alive, looking at you from the margin of the page, its call silent but present. You want to ask him how he learned to paint like that, but you do not. The rule of silence is not enforced in the scriptorium, the way it is in the cloister or the refectory, but there is an understanding that words should be few and necessary. You have learned to speak only when you must, and this is not one of those times. You return to your ruling, and the afternoon passes. The bell for none rings, and you put down your quill. Brother Egan does not move. He is still painting, his brush moving in small circles, adding details to the bird's wing. You hesitate at the door, not wanting to leave, not wanting to break the spell of the scriptorium. Brother Eogan looks up and says, "The bird will still be here tomorrow. Go, pray, eat, rest. The work will wait. You go. Rest. The work will wait. You go." You go to the church, and you stand in your place at the back, and you sing the psalms of none. But your mind is not on the psalms. It is on the scriptorium, on the desk, on the quill, on the letters that you are learning to make. It is on Brother Eogan and his wave, his bird, his gold. You think of the patience he spoke of, and you think of your own patience, and you wonder if you will ever be able to create something as beautiful as that bird, something that will make someone stop and look and forget the world for a moment. The office ends, and you go to the refectory. You eat your bread and your pottage, and you listen to the reading, and you do not taste the food. Your mind is still in the scriptorium, still on the desk, still on the quill. The abbot notices your distraction, but he says nothing. He only looks at you with his tired eyes, and you look away. After Vespers, you go to the scriptorium. The door is unlocked, and the candles are still burning on the desks. Brother Colum is gone. Brother Agan is gone. You are alone. You sit at your desk, and you look at the page you copied this morning, et lux in tenebris lus, et tenebrae eam non compredernant. The letters are uneven, the spacing awkward, the L still too thin, but it is yours, and it is the best you have done so far. You take a fresh piece of parchment, rule the lines, and begin again. You write the sentence once, then twice, then 3 times. The letters improve with each repetition. The letters, the broad ache, the gzmide that are porcages I. You begin to feel the rhythm of writing, the way the quill should move, the pressure it needs, the angle that makes the ink flow smoothly. You are not thinking about the meaning of the words. You are thinking about the shape of them, the weight of them, the way they look on the page, and somehow, without meaning to, you begin to understand what they mean. The light shines in the darkness. The darkness does not overcome it. The words are not a promise. They are a description of what is happening here, in this room, at this desk, with this quill. The darkness is the silence, the cold, the loneliness. The light is the work, the prayer, the slow, patient shaping of letters that will outlast you. The bell for Compline rings. You put down your quill, blow out your candle, and leave the scriptorium. The stairs are dark, and you take them slowly, one at a time, your hand on the cold stone wall. The corridor is silent. The monks are already in the church. You find your place at the back, and you stand with them, and you sing the psalms of the night. Your voice is still uncertain, still searching for the melody, but it is there, and it is yours, and it is enough. After Compline, you go to your cell. You lie on your mattress, the blanket pulled to your chin, and you stare at the wooden cross. You do not pray. You think of the scriptorium, of the desk, of the quill, of the letters that are beginning to take shape under your hand. You think of Brother Eogan and his bird, and you wonder if you will ever paint a bird like that, something so small and so alive that it seems to breathe. You think of Brother Colum and his patience, his corrections, his steady hand. You think of the words you copied, the ones you are beginning to understand, et lux in tenebris. Lucet. The light shines in the darkness. You are not sure if you believe it, but you are here and you are working, and the work is a kind of light, and the light is a kind of prayer. The bell for vigils will ring in a few hours. You will rise, and you will go to the church, and you will sing the psalms, and then you will go to the scriptorium, and you will copy the words again, and again, and again, until the letters are not just marks on a page, but a part of you, a rhythm, a prayer, a way of being in the world. You do not know if you will ever be in the world. You do not know if you will ever be a good scribe. You do not know if you will ever paint a bird that sings. But you are here, and you are working, and the work is a kind of prayer, and the prayer is a kind of home. The bell rings. It is not vigils. It is the bell of the night watch, the bell that marks the hours between Compline and the first office. You count the strokes. There are 3 of them, and then silence. You turn on your side, pull the blanket higher, and listen to the silence. It is not empty. It is full of the sound of your own breathing, the beat of your own heart, the memory of the letters you made today, the hope of the letters you will make tomorrow. Somewhere outside, a gull calls, and the waves answer, and the wind carries the sound across the loch. You close your eyes, and you sleep. Behind the refectory, sheltered from the wind by a high stone wall that has stood for 200 years, the garden waits. It is not the vegetable garden where the monks grow their leeks and onions and cabbages. It is smaller, more secret, a square of earth no larger than a cell, enclosed on all sides by walls that trap the heat of the sun and keep out the salt spray that burns everything beyond. The door is low, made of oak, and you have to stoop to pass through it. Inside, the air is warmer, stiller, and the smell of damp earth mingles with the sharp scent of herbs that grow nowhere else on the island. Brother Finan is already kneeling in the soil, his round face flushed, his hands dark with loam. He looks up when you enter and says, "Welcome to the Physic Garden. This is where we grow the things that heal." Brother Finan is the infirmarian, the monk who tends the sick, who mixes the potions and poultices, who sits with the dying and washes the bodies of the dead. He is round and cheerful, his belly straining against the belt of his habit, his cheeks red from the wind and the warmth of the hearth. He hums when he works, a tuneless hum that rises and falls like the waves outside the wall. And he smiles at everything, at a worm wriggling in the soil, at a ladybug resting on a leaf, at the first green shoot of a herb pushing through the dark earth. You have never met anyone so content. He does not speak often, but when he does, his words are soft and unhurried, like stones dropped into still water. He leads you through the garden, pointing to the beds, naming the plants. Angelica, with its tall stalks and broad leaves, good for the lungs and the stomach, self-heal, low and creeping. Purple flowers that close at night, used for wounds and fevers. Yarrow, feathery and bitter, chewed to stop bleeding, steeped to bring down a fever. Feverfew, small and white, the leaves so bitter that they make your tongue curl. But Brother Finan says it will break the most stubborn fever if you can get the patient to swallow it. He shows you the bed of chamomile, the tiny flowers like white daisies, the scent sweet and apple-like. For sleep, he says, a tea made from these flowers will calm the most restless soul. I drink it myself on the nights when the wind keeps me awake. The garden is a miracle of stubbornness, Brother Finan tells you. The soil here is not native to the island. It was brought from the lowlands in barrels, carried up the hills by lay brothers who cursed every step. The wall is double thick, built to keep out the salt spray that would kill the herbs in a single storm. The water comes from the well, carried by bucket, and in the dry months every drop is precious. The garden is a choice, Brother Finan says. We choose to grow these herbs because we choose to heal. The island does not give us this, we make it. You work beside him for the rest of the morning, pulling weeds, turning the soil, watering the beds with a wooden bucket that leaks at the seams. The work is slow and repetitive, and your mind wanders as you work. You think of the scriptorium, of the letters you are learning to make, of the words that are becoming a part of you. You think of the church, of the psalms, of the way the chant rises and falls like the hum of Brother Finan. You think of the loch, dark and still, reflecting the clouds, and you wonder if the water in the well comes from the loch or from some deeper source, some hidden spring that no one has ever found. The bell for sex rings, and you leave the garden. Your hands are dirty, your knees are stained with soil, and your back aches from bending over the beds. But you're not tired in the way you used to be tired, the tiredness of despair. This tiredness is a good tiredness, a tiredness that comes from work and will be healed by sleep and will return tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. You wash your hands in the stone basin by the cloister, and you go to the church, and you stand in your place at the back, and you sing the psalms of the 6th hour. Your voice is stronger now, surer, and you know some of the words without looking at the psalter. The chant is becoming a part of you, the way the herbs are becoming a part of the garden, the way the letters are becoming a part of the page. After none, Brother Finan finds you in the cloister. His face is not smiling now. He says, Brother Tadig is failing. The cough has settled in his chest, and he cannot keep down the broth. I have done what I can, but the body is old, and the winter was hard, and the spring has come too late. He pauses, and his eyes are wet. He has asked for someone to sit with him. The abbot thinks you should go. You do not ask why. You do not ask why. He do not ask what you should do. You only follow Brother Finan across the cloister to the infirmary, a low building attached to the south side of the refectory. Its windows, smaller than the others, its door always slightly ajar. The infirmary is warm, almost hot, the fire in the hearth burning high, the air thick with the smell of herbs and something else, something sweet and heavy that you cannot name. The beds are arranged in 2 rows, their curtains drawn back to let in the light. Most of them are empty, but in the bed nearest the fire, An old monk lies with his eyes closed, his hands folded on his chest, his breath shallow and fast. This is Brother Taj. You have seen him in the church, a small bent figure in the back of the choir, his voice barely audible above the others. You have never spoken to him. You do not know anything about him except that he is old and that he is dying. Brother Finan pulls a stool to the bedside and gestures for you to sit. He hands you a book, a psalter, open to a page marked with a strip of leather. Read, he says. He cannot speak, but he can hear. The Psalms are the only medicine he needs now. He leaves, and you are alone with the dying man. You sit on the stool, the psalter in your hands, your eyes on the words. The light from the fire flickers across the page, and the Latin letters seem to dance. You begin to read, your voice low, uncertain. Domine exaudi orationem mem acclamamais a te venate. Lord, hear my prayer and let my cry come to you. You do not know if Brother Tad can hear you. His eyes do not open. His hands do not move, but his breath slows, just a little, as if the words are a balm, a blanket, a hand on his forehead. You read the psalm to the end, and then you turn the page and read the next one. Miserere mei, Deus. Secundum magnam misericordiam tuum. Have mercy on me, God, according to your great mercy. The words are familiar to you now, though you have never understood them the way you understand them here, in this warm room, beside this dying man. The mercy that the psalmist begs for is not a distant mercy, a theological abstraction. It is a mercy that breathes, that hovers in the air like the smoke from the hearth, that settles on the face of Brother Taj like the light of the candles. You read for an hour, maybe longer. You lose track of time. The fire crackles, the wind rattles the window, and you read. You read the psalms of lament and the psalms of trust, the psalms that cry out to God and the psalms that wait in silence. Brother Tad does not move, does not open his eyes, but his breath grows slower, steadier, and you think that perhaps he is sleeping, that perhaps the psalms have given him the only peace he can still receive. Brother Finan returns. He looks at Brother Tad, feels his pulse, touches his forehead. He nods to you and whispers, "He is still with us. You may go. Come back after Vespers." You close the psalter, hand it to Brother Finan, and leave the infirmary. The air in the cloister is cold, so cold that it takes your breath away, and you stand for a moment at the edge of the garden, shivering, trying to remember what it felt like to be warm. After Vespers, you go back. Brother Taj is the same. His eyes closed, his hands folded, his breath shallow and fast. Brother Finan is not there. The other beds are empty. The sick monks have returned to their cells or moved to some other part of the monastery. You sit on the stool, take the psalter, and open it to the page marked with the strip of leather. You read, De profunde clamavi ad te, Domine. Out of the depths I have cried to you, Lord. The words rise from your throat like smoke, like incense, like the prayers of a man who has nothing left to offer but his voice. The night passes. You do not know how long you read. The fire burns low and a novice comes to add logs. The bell rings for compline, and you hear the monks singing in the church, their voices faint and distant. You read through the psalms one after another, and when you reach the end of the psalter, you begin again. Brother Taj's breath is the only clock, the only measure of time. It quickens, slows, quickens again, and you read, and you wait. Brother Finan comes at midnight. He touches Brother Taj's forehead, feels his pulse, listens to his breath. He says, "It will not be long. You should stay." You nod, and you continue reading. In te, Domine, speravi, non contar in eternum. In you, Lord, I have hoped. Let me never be put to shame. The words are a rope, a lifeline, a thread that connects this dying man to something beyond the room, beyond the abbey, beyond the world. Brother Tad opens his eyes. They are pale, watery, the eyes of a man who has seen too many winters. He looks at you, and you think he is trying to speak, but no sound comes. His lips move, form a word you cannot hear, and then his eyes close, and his breath stops. You sit on the stool, the psalter open in your hands, and you wait for him to breathe again. He does not. The silence in the room is different now, deeper, emptier. The fire crackles, the wind rattles the window, but Brother Tad is still and you are alone with him, and you do not know what to do. Brother Finan comes. He touches Brother Tad's forehead, feels his pulse, listens for his breath. He says, "He is gone. May he rest in peace." He closes Brother Tad's eyes, folds his hands over his chest, and pulls the blanket up to his chin. Then he turns to you and says, "You should go to the church. The monks are singing vigils. You can join them." You stand, close the psalter, and hand it to Brother Finan. Your legs are stiff, your back aches, and your throat is dry. You walk to the door, and then you stop. You turn back. Brother Finan is kneeling beside the bed, his head bowed, his lips moving, in a prayer you cannot hear. You watch him for a moment, and then you leave. The cloister is dark, the stone cold under your feet, the sky above the garden full of stars. You do not go to the church. You go to your cell, and you lie on your mattress, and you stare at the wooden cross. You do not pray. You think of Brother Tad, his open eyes, his silent lips, his last breath. You think of the psalms you read, the words that filled the room, the silence that followed. You think of the garden, the herbs, the soil that had to be brought from the lowlands in barrels. You think of the choice that Brother Finan spoke of, the choice to grow things that heal, the choice to sit with the dying, the choice to stay. The bell rings for lauds, but you do not rise. You lie on your mattress, the blanket pulled to your chin, and you listen to the monks singing in the church. Their voices are faint, distant, but you know the psalms they are singing, and you whisper the words in the darkness. Domini exaudi orationem, neem. Lord, hear my prayer. You whisper them for Brother Tad, for Brother Finan, for yourself, for all the dying who have no one to read to them. The office ends, and the silence returns. You close your eyes, and you sleep. The funeral is the next day. Brother Tad's body is laid on a wooden bier in the center of the church, his hands crossed on his chest, a wooden cross placed between them. The monks gather in the choir, and the abbot leads the office for the dead. The chant is different from the usual psalms, slower, lower, filled with words of hope and sorrow. Requiem aeternam Danae Domine. Eternal rest grant to him, Lord. You stand in your place at the back, and you sing with the others, your voice blending with theirs. You are not sure if you believe the words, but you sing them anyway, because Brother Tad believed them, because the monks believe them, because the singing is a way of being with him even after he is gone. After the office, the monks carry the bier to the cemetery, a small plot of ground behind the church, overlooking the loch. The ground is wet, the soil dark and heavy, and the novices take turns digging. You take the spade when it is your turn, and you dig, the blade scraping against stones, the earth clinging to the metal. The grave is shallow, because the ground is wet, because the winter was hard, because the monks believe that the body does not need much. You lower Brother Tad into the earth, and the abbot says the final prayers, and the monks sing the last psalm. In paradisum deducant te angeli. May the angels lead you into paradise. You fill the grave. The soil falls in clumps, covering the wooden bier, covering the cross, covering Brother Tud's folded hands. You work without thinking, your arms moving automatically, your eyes on the ground. When the grave is filled, you step back, and the monks stand in silence, their heads bowed, their hands folded. The wind blows, cold and damp, and you shiver, and you wait. The abbot speaks. Brother Tudge was a monk for 60 years. He entered this abbey when he was 16, and he never left. He knew the psalms by heart, and he sang them every day until his voice gave out. He was not a great scholar, not a great teacher, not a great saint, but he was faithful. He prayed, and he worked, and he waited, and now his waiting is over. He pauses, and his eyes move across the faces of the monks. We will remember him, we will pray for him, and we will follow him one day into the silence that he has entered. The monks disperse. You walk back to the cloister, and you stand at the edge of the garden, looking at the wall that shelters the herbs from the wind. Brother Finan comes to stand beside you. He does not speak. He only stands, his hands in his sleeves, his breath misting in the cold air. After a long time, he says, "He was the first one I buried. When I came here, I was afraid of death. I thought it was a door that opened into darkness. But Brother Tad taught me that death is a door that opens into light, not because he said it, but because he lived it. He was not afraid. He was ready. He was ready. He had been ready for years." He turns to you, and his eyes are wet, but he is smiling. You read to him. That was a gift. He heard you. I know he did. You do not know what to say, so you say nothing. You stand with Brother Finan, and you watch the sun set behind the church, the sky turning from grey to gold to bronze, and you think of Brother Tad, his open eyes, his silent lips, his last breath. You think of the psalms you read, the words that filled the room, the silence that followed. You think of the grave, the wet soil, the wooden cross. You think of the garden, the herbs, the choice to heal. The bell for vespers rings. You go to the church, and you stand in your place at the back, and you sing the psalms of the evening. Your voice is tired, but it is there, and it is enough. The chant rises and falls, and you rise and fall with it. And for a moment, you forget the cold, the grave, the fear. There is only the music, only the prayer, only the presence of the other monks singing with you. Brother Tad is not with you, not in body, but you feel him in the silence between the notes, in the pause after the last Amen, in the stillness that follows. He is there, and you are here, and the chant goes on. After Vespers, you go to the refectory. You eat your bread and your pottage, and you listen to the reading. Today it is from the book of Job, the passage where Job says, "I know that my Redeemer lives." You have heard these words before, but they sound different now, heavier, more real. You think of Brother Tad, and you wonder if he knew that his Redeemer lived, if that knowledge was what made him unafraid. You hope so. You hope that when your time comes, you will know it too. The meal ends and you go to Compline. You stand in your place at the back, and you sing the psalms of the night. Your voice is steady, stronger than it was this morning. The chant rises and falls, and you rise and fall with it, and you think of Brother Taj, and you think of Brother Finan, and you think of yourself, and you pray. You do not know the words. You do not have the words. You do not have the words, but you pray anyway, and the prayer is a kind of hope, and the hope is a kind of light. After Compline, you go to your cell. You lie on your mattress, the blanket pulled to your chin, and you stare at the wooden cross. You do not pray. You think of Brother Tad, his open eyes, his silent lips, his last breath. You think of the psalms you read, the words that filled the room, the silence that followed. You think of the grave, the wet soil, the wooden cross. You think of Brother Finan's words. He was ready. He had been ready for years. You wonder if you will ever be ready, if the years of prayer and work and silence will prepare you for the door, or if death will always be a surprise, a thief in the night. The bell rings, 3 strokes, the night watch. You count them, and then the silence returns. You turn on your side, pull the blanket higher, and close your eyes. Brother Tad is gone, but the psalms are still there, and the chant is still there, and the monks are still singing in the church. You are not alone. You have never been alone. The garden is waiting, the herbs are growing, and the choice to heal is a choice to stay. You close your eyes and you sleep. The sheep are the wealth of the abbey, though you do not understand this at first. You see them on the hillsides, scattered like grey stones, their backs to the wind, their heads down, chewing the short heather that grows between the rocks. They are not beautiful animals, their wool is coarse, their legs are short, their faces are dark and expressionless. But Brother Aidan, the lay brother who oversees the flocks, tells you that without the sheep there would be no abbey. The wool buys the salt, the iron, the wine for the mass, he says. The wool buys the parchment you write on, the ink you use, the glass in the windows of the church. The sheep are our trade, our treasure, our life. He speaks in a low voice, the Gaelic of the hills, and you have to strain to understand him. But you understand enough. The lay brothers are different from the choir monks. They do not sing the psalms. They do not read Latin. They do not sit in the Psalms, they do not read Latin, they do not sit in the scriptorium or the chapter house. Their work is the work of the hands, the work of the fields, the work of the flocks. They rise before dawn, the same as you, but they do not go to the church. They go to the byres and the barns, to the sheepfolds and the sheilings, to the places where the animals are kept and the crops are stored. They eat their bread in silence, standing, and they work until the light fails. They are not less holy than the choir monks. Brother Aidan tells you that the founder of the abbey, a man named Colum who came from Iona, said that the work of the hands is the prayer of the body, and the prayer of the body is as pleasing to God as the prayer of the lips. You do not know if this is true, but you see the peace in Brother Aidan's face, the way he hums as he works, the way he touches the sheep with gentleness, and you think that perhaps it is. The shearing comes in late spring when the days are long and the sun is warm and the wool is thick and heavy. You are sent to help because every hand is needed, and because the abbot believes that the choir monks should not forget the work that feeds them. You walk with the lay brothers to the high pastures where the sheep have been grazing since the snow melted. The path is steep, the ground wet, and your boots slip on the grass. The mist is thin today, and you can see the loch far below, dark and still, and the sea beyond it, grey and endless. The sheilings are small stone huts, roofed with turf, where the shepherds stay during the summer months. Smoke rises from a chimney, thin and blue, and you smell peat and wool and something else, something that might be the smell of the hills themselves. The shearing is hard work. You are given a pair of iron shears, blunt and heavy, and you are shown how to hold the sheep, how to turn it on its back, how to cut the wool in one long piece. Your first attempt is clumsy. The sheep struggles, and the shears slip, and the wool comes off in rugged clumps. Brother Aidan does not scold you. He takes the sheep from your hands, calms it with a word, and shows you again. Slowly, he says, "The sheep knows you are afraid. Do not be afraid. The wool does not hurt. The sheep only wants to be free." You try again, and this time the wool comes off in a single sheet, grey and matted, warm from the animal's body. The sheep kicks once, then stands, shivering, and runs to join the others. You hold the fleece in your hands, and you feel the weight of it, the grease of it, the life that was in it. The lay brothers work quickly, their hands moving with a speed and sureness that you cannot match. They do not speak. The only sounds are the bleating of the sheep, the snip of the shears, the soft curses when an animal kicks. The sun moves across the sky, and the shadows shorten, and the pile of fleeces grows. You work until your back aches and your fingers cramp, and you do not stop. The work is the prayer, and the prayer is the work, and you are learning to let the two become one. At midday, you stop to eat. The lay brothers sit on the grass, their backs against the stone wall of the sheiling, and they share a loaf of bread and a piece of cheese. You sit with them, and they pass you a cup of water, cool and sweet. No one speaks. The silence is not the silence of the church, which is full of echoes and shadows. It is the silence of exhaustion, of men who have used their breath for work and have none left for words. You are grateful for it. You eat your bread, and you watch the clouds move across the sky, and you listen to the sheep. The shearing takes 3 days. On the last day, you are given a different task. Brother Aidan leads you to a small stone building at the edge of the pasture, where the fleeces are washed in a trough of cold water. The water comes from a spring that rises from the hillside, and it is so cold that your hands go numb within minutes. You dip the fleeces one by one, and you work the water through the wool, washing out the dirt and the grease and the bits of heather that cling to the fibers. The water turns brown, then grey, then clear, and the fleeces emerge clean and white. You wring them out, your arms straining, and you lay them on the grass to dry. The sun is warm, and the wool steams, and the smell of lanolin fills the air. You think of the monks in the scriptorium, dipping their quills in ink, and you think of the sheep, giving their wool so that you can write. The chain is unbroken. The work is the same. On the evening of the 3rd day, you walk back to the abbey with the lay brothers. The path is steep, and your legs are tired, and the bag of fleeces on your shoulder is heavy. But you are not unhappy. There is a satisfaction in the work that you have not felt in the scriptorium or the garden. It is the satisfaction of seeing a task completed, of watching the pile of fleeces grow, of knowing that the wool you have washed will become cloth, and the cloth will become habits, and the habits will warm the monks who pray in the cold church. The work is a circle, and you are part of it. Brother Aidan walks beside you. He does not speak, but his presence is a comfort. When you reach the abbey gate, he stops and says, "You worked well. The sheep did not fear you. That is a gift." He turns and walks toward the lay brother's quarters, and you watch him go, his figure small in the fading light. You go to your cell, wash your hands in the basin, and lie down on the mattress. The blanket smells of wool, and you think of the sheep, and you sleep. The rhythm of the abbey changes with the seasons. In the spring, there is the shearing and the planting. In the summer, the hay is cut and dried and stacked in the barn. In the autumn, the grain is harvested and the sheep are brought down from the hills. In the winter, the work moves indoors, the spinning, the weaving, the mending of tools and harnesses. You learn to do all of it because the abbot believes that a monk should not be too proud to work with his hands. You learn to spin wool into thread, your fingers twisting the fibers, the spindle turning, the thread growing. You learn to weave the thread into cloth, the shuttle passing back and forth, the cloth growing row by row. You learn to mend a harness, to sharpen a blade, to butcher a sheep when the meat is needed. The work is hard, and you are clumsy, and you make mistakes. But you learn, and the learning is a kind of prayer. One afternoon, you were sent to the Sheelings with a message for the lay brothers. The path is familiar now, the stones worn smooth by your feet, the heather bent by your passage. The mist is low, and the loch is hidden, and the world is a circle of grey. You walk without hurry because there is nowhere else to be, because the message can wait, because the walking is a kind of prayer. You think of the sheep scattered on the hillsides, their backs to the wind, their heads down. You think of Brother Aidan, his gentle hands, his low voice, his peace. You think of the wool, the cloth, the habits, the chain that connects the hills to the church. You are part of that chain. The chain is unbroken. You find the lay brothers in a small bothy, sheltering from a sudden shower. They are sitting on the floor, their backs against the wall, their eyes closed. Brother Aidan opens his eyes when you enter and says, "The abbot has sent you." You nod and give him the message, a small piece of parchment with a few words written in the abbot's hand. He reads it, nods, and tucks it into his tunic. He says, "Stay, the rain will pass. We have bread and cheese." You sit with them, and you eat, and you listen to the rain on the roof. No one speaks. The silence is not the silence of the church, but it is a silence you have learned to love. The rain passes, and you walk back to the abbey. The mist is lifted, and you can see the loch, dark and still, and the sea beyond it, grey and endless. The gulls are calling, and the wind is soft, and the heather is wet under your feet. You think of the sheep, the wool, the work. You think of the monks in the scriptorium, copying the Gospels, and the lay brothers on the hills, tending the flocks. The work is the same. The prayer is the same. The life is the same. You go to the church for Vespers, and you stand in your place at the back, and you sing. Your voice is tired, but it is there, and it is enough. The chant rises and falls, and you rise and fall with it, and you think of Brother Aidan, and you think of the sheep, and you think of the wool that will become the habit you are wearing. The chain is unbroken. The work is the prayer. The prayer is the life. After compline, you go to your cell. You lie on the mattress, the blanket pulled to your chin, and you stare at the wooden cross. You do not pray. You think of the hills, the heather, the sheep. You think of the shearing, the washing, the spinning, the weaving. You think of the lay brothers, their silence, their peace, their work. You think of the abbot, his tired eyes, his words. The work of the hands is the prayer of the body. You are beginning to understand what he meant. The work is not separate from the prayer. The work is the prayer. The work is the prayer. The work is the work. They are the same thing. The bell rings, 3 strokes, the night watch. You count them, and then the silence returns. You turn on your side, pull the blanket higher, and close your eyes. The smell of wool is on your hands, the taste of salt on your lips, the sound of the sheep in your ears. You sleep and you dream of the hills, and the sheep and the light that shines in the darkness, and the darkness does not overcome it. The boat appears on the loch one afternoon when the mist is thin and the water is the colour of old silver. You are walking back from the sheilings, your boots wet, your hands still smelling of wool, when you see it, a small curragh, black against the grey, its single sail barely catching the wind. It moves slowly, as if the loch is reluctant to let it pass, and you stop at the edge of the shore to watch. The figure in the boat is small, hunched against the cold, and you cannot see his face, but you see the way he handles the oars, the steady rhythm of them, the patience of a man who has spent his life on the water. You wait. The boat drifts toward the stone jetty where the supply boats land, and you walk along the shore to meet it. The pebbles shift under your feet, and the gulls cry overhead, and the wind carries the smell of salt and wet wood. By the time you reach the jetty, the boat is already there, its prow resting on the stones, its sail furled. The man is standing in the water, pulling the boat higher, his bare feet pale against the dark pebbles. He looks up when he hears your footsteps, and you see that he is old, his face weathered, his beard white, his eyes bright. He wears a rough woolen tunic, patched at the elbows, and a leather satchel hangs from his shoulder. He smiles, and the smile cracks the dry skin of his lips. He says, "You are from the Abbey." You nod. He says, "I have come from Iona. I have been walking on the water for 3 days. I am tired and hungry. May I rest?" You lead him to the gate, and the porter lets him in. The pilgrim's name is Brother Finian, though he is not a brother in the sense of the abbey. He is a hermit, he tells you, a man who lives alone on a small island west of Iona, where the only sounds are the waves and the wind and the cries of the seals. He has come to the mainland to visit the holy places, to pray at the tombs of the saints, to bring back a sense of the world that he has left behind. The island is beautiful, he says, but beauty without company becomes a kind of hunger. I need to see faces that are not my own. I need to hear voices that are not the voice of the sea. The abbot gives him a cell near the gatehouse, and he is allowed to eat with the monks in the refectory. He eats slowly, savouring each bite, and he listens to the reading with his eyes closed, his lips moving silently. You watch him from your place at the end of the table, and you wonder what it would be like to live on an island, alone, with nothing but the seals for company. You think of the cave on the far shore of the loch, the one where the old hermit lived before the abbey was built, and you wonder if that life is harder or easier than the life you have chosen. You do not know. You may never know. After supper, the pilgrim is allowed to speak. The monks gather in the warming room, a small space with a stone hearth and benches along the walls, and Brother Finian sits in the chair nearest the fire. The flames cast shadows on his face, and his eyes seem to glow in the dark. He begins to speak of Iona, the holy isle of the west, where Columba came from Ireland with 12 companions and built a monastery that became a beacon for the whole of Scotland. He speaks of the white sands, the green fields, the sound of the waves on the shore. He speaks of the seals that come close to the island, their heads bobbing in the water, their eyes dark and curious. He speaks of the hermit who lived in a cave on the far side of the island, who ate only wild honey and drank only rainwater, who saw angels in the morning mist. You listen, and the stories fill the room the way the fire fills the hearth, slowly, warmly, until there is no space left for the cold that presses against the walls. The monks lean forward, their eyes on the pilgrim, their hands folded in their laps. No one speaks. The only sounds are the crackle of the flames, the wind outside, and the voice of Brother Finian, low and steady, like the tide coming in. He tells of a storm that caught him on the open water, a storm that turned the sea into a boiling cauldron and the sky into a sheet of black iron. He says, I prayed the prayer that Columba prayed when the sea rose against him. Domine, non est exaltatum cor meum. Lord, my heart is not lifted up. I prayed, and the storm parted. Not because I am holy, but because the prayer is holy. The prayer is a boat, and the boat does not sink. He tells of a seal that followed him for 3 days, swimming beside his curragh, watching him with its dark eyes. He says, I thought it was a soul that had not yet found its rest. I spoke to it. I told it about Columba, about the saints, about the mercy of God. On the third day, it turned and swam away. I like to think that it found what it was looking for. He tells of a winter when the ice came, when the sea froze between the islands and he could not leave his hermitage for months. He says, I had bread for a month, and the bread lasted for 3. I had water for a week, and the water lasted for 2. The island provided, the seals brought fish to the shore, the birds left eggs in the grass. I learned that you do not need to ask for what you need. You only need to be still, and it will come. The monks listen, and you listen, and the night passes. The fire burns low, and the abbot nods, and the pilgrim stops speaking. He says, I have talked too much. The silence is a gift, and I have spent it like a fool. The abbot shakes his head and says, the silence is not spent. It is multiplied. Go to your cell. Rest. Tomorrow you may tell us more. The pilgrim stays for 3 nights. On the second night, he speaks of the sea as a kind of prayer. He says, the waves rise and fall, rise and fall. They never stop. They never rest. That is the prayer of the sea. The prayer of the land is different. The land is still. The land waits. The land is the silence between the waves. He looks at you, and his eyes are bright. You are the land. You have chosen to be still. That is a gift. Do not waste it. On the third night, he speaks of leaving. He says, I will go to Iona, to the tomb of Columba. I will pray there, and then I will return to my island. The seals will be waiting. The birds will be quaking. The silent with its black I am not afraid of the silence. I have learned to love it. But I am afraid of forgetting that there are other voices in the world. That is why I came. To hear you. To remember that I am not alone. He leaves at dawn on the 4th day. You stand at the gate with the porter, watching him walk down to the jetty, where his boat is still moored. The mist is thick, and the loch is hidden, and the world is a circle of grey. He pushes the carrack into the water, climbs in, and raises the sail. The wind catches it, and the boat moves away from the shore, slowly, silently, until it is swallowed by the mist. You stand at the gate, the cold wind on your face, and you listen. The only sound is the waves lapping against the stones. You go to the church for terce, and you stand in your place at the back, and you sing. Your voice is tired, but it is there, and it is enough. The chant rises and falls, and you rise and fall with it, and you think of Brother Finian, alone on his island, watching the seals, waiting for the silence. You think of the boat, the mist, the prayer that carried him across the water. You think of the words he spoke, you are the land, you have chosen to be still. That is a gift. You are the land. You have chosen to be still. That is a gift. You are not sure if you believe it, but you are here, and you are still, and the stillness is a kind of prayer. After none, you go to the scriptorium. Brother Colum is at his desk, his quill moving, his eyes on the page. Brother Eogan is painting a margin, a wave curling around the edge of the text, its crest white, its trough dark. You take your place at your desk, rule your lines, dip your quill. You write the words you have written 1,000 times. Et lux in tenebris lucet, et tenebrae eam non comprendeunt. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. You write them slowly, carefully, and the letters are steady, the spacing even, the curve soft. You are learning. You are still learning. The bell for vespers rings. You put down your quill and go to the church. The monks are already in their stalls, and you take your place at the back. The chant begins, and you sing. Your voice is not loud, but it is there, and it is enough. The voices rise and fall, and you rise and fall with them, and you think of the pilgrim, somewhere on the sea, his small boat moving through the mist. You pray for him. You do not know the words, you do not have the words, but you pray anyway, and the prayer is a kind of hope, and the hope is a kind of light. After compline, you go to your cell. You lie on the mattress, the blanket pulled to your chin, and you stare at the wooden cross. You do not pray. You think of Brother Finian, his stories, his seals, his storm. You think of the boat, the mist, the silence. You think of his words, the prayer is a boat, and the boat does not sink. You are not sure if you believe this, but you are here, and the prayer is in your breath, and the breath is in your chest, and the chest is a boat, and the boat is still afloat. The bell rings, 3 strokes, the night watch. You count them, and then the silence returns. You turn on your side, pull the blanket higher, and close your eyes. The waves are lapping against the shore, and the wind is soft, and the gulls are sleeping. You sleep, and you dream of the sea, and the seals, and the light that shines in the darkness, and the darkness does not overcome it. The sun sets before 3 in the afternoon. You notice it first on the shortest day, when the light through the small window of your cell turns from grey to gold to nothing in the space of an hour. You have known that winter was coming, have felt it in the cold stone of the cloister, in the frost that crunches under your sandals, in the way the monks huddle closer together in the church. But the darkness itself is a surprise, a presence that seeps into the abbey like water through a crack in the wall. You light your candle earlier each evening, and the flame seems smaller, more fragile, as if the dark is pressing against it from all sides. The hours between Vespers and Compline are the hardest. The church is cold, the candles are few, and the chant seems to come from far away, as if the voices are struggling to reach you through a thick fog. You stand in your place at the back, your hands folded, your eyes on the altar, and you try to pray. But the words stick in your throat, and the silence between the psalms is longer than it was in summer, and you find yourself listening for sounds that are not there. Footsteps in the corridor, a knock at the gate, a voice calling your name from the darkness beyond the walls. You are afraid. You do not want to admit it, even to yourself, but the fear is there, cold and heavy, like a stone in your chest. It is not the fear of ghosts or demons, though the old stories speak of both. It is the fear of the dark itself, the vast empty silence that presses against the walls of the abbey, that seeps through the cracks in the stone, that fills the spaces between the bells. The dark is not empty, you tell yourself. It is full of the prayer of the monks, the whisper of the wind, the lapping of the waves. But the voice that speaks these words is small, and the dark is large, and the words are not enough. Brother Cullum finds you in the cloister one afternoon, standing at the edge of the garden, staring at the bare beds. He does not speak. He stands beside you, his hands in his sleeves, his breath steaming in the cold air. After a long time, he says, "The darkness is a teacher. It teaches you that you are not as strong as you thought. It teaches you that you need the light." He pauses, and you wait. He says, "When I was young, I was afraid of the dark. I would lie in my cell and listen to the wind, and I would imagine that the wind was a voice, and the voice was calling me out into the night. I was afraid that I would go, that I would leave the abbey, that I would walk into the dark and never come back." He turns to you, and his eyes are pale in the grey light. "I never went. The dark was a liar. The only voice was the wind, and the wind was only wind. But the fear was real, and the fear taught me to pray." He leaves, and you stand in the cloister, watching the light fade. The bell rings for vespers, and you go to the church, and you sing. Your voice is quiet, but it is there, and it is enough. The chant rises and falls, and you rise and fall with it, and the darkness presses against the windows, but the candles hold it back, and the voices hold it back, and you are not alone. The warming room is a small space at the end of the east cloister, with a stone hearth that is kept burning day and night. The monks gather there after Compline, before they go to their cells, to warm their hands and their feet and their faces. They sit on benches along the walls, their habits pull tight around them, and they speak in low voices about the saints, about the harvest, about the ships that will come in spring. You sit among them, your hands wrapped around a cup of hot water, flavored with a sprig of mint, and you listen. The fire crackles, and the shadows dance on the walls, and the voices are soft and low, like the hum of bees in a hive. Brother Finan is there, his round face flushed from the heat. He tells a story about a monk who was lost in a blizzard and found his way back to the abbey by following the sound of the bell. Brother Iona is there, his long fingers stained with paint, and he speaks of the colours he will use in the spring when the light returns to the scriptorium. Brother Aidan is there, his hands rough from the shearing, and he speaks of the sheep huddled in the byres, their breath steaming in the cold. The abbot is there, sitting in the corner, his eyes closed, his lips moving in a prayer that no one can hear. You sit among them, and you are warm, and you are safe, and the darkness outside the walls is far away. But the darkness is not far away. It is there, waiting, pressing against the stones, filling the spaces between the bells. You feel it when you leave the warming room and walk to your cell, the corridor dark, the only light the small flame of your candle. You feel it when you lie on your mattress, the blanket pulled to your chin, the window a square of blackness. You feel it when the bell rings for vigils and you rise in the dark, your feet finding the cold stone floor, your hands finding the habit that you have learned to fold and unfold in the dark. One night, you wake before the bell. The room is dark, the candle burned out, and the silence is so deep that you can hear your own heartbeat. You lie on the mattress, your eyes open, and you listen. The wind is still. The wind is still. The waves are still. The abbey is a tomb of stone and silence. You are afraid. The fear is cold and heavy, and it presses against your chest, and you cannot breathe. You try to pray, but the words will not come. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner. The words are there in your memory, but your lips will not move, and your throat will not open, and the darkness presses closer, and you are alone. You sit up. The mattress rustles, and the sound is loud in the silence, and you are startled by it, by the evidence that you are still alive, that you are still here, that the darkness has not swallowed you. You reach for the flint and strike it. The spark glows, and the wick catches, and the flame flickers, and the light fills the cell. The walls are the same. The cross is the same. The jar, the basin, the blanket. You are not alone. You have never been alone. You look at the cross, and you remember Brother Colum's words. The darkness is a teacher. You are not sure what it has taught you. You are still afraid, but you are still here, and the candle is burning, and the bell will ring soon, and you will go to the church, and you will sing. That is enough. That has to be enough. The bell rings. You rise, and you go to the church, and you stand in your place at the back, and you sing. The voices are tired, the chant is slow, but it is there, and it is enough. The darkness presses against the windows, but the candles hold it back, and the voices hold it back, and you are not alone. In the morning, Brother Colum finds you in the scriptorium. He does not speak. He sets a small wooden cross on your desk, a cross carved from driftwood, the wood smooth and grey, the edges worn by the sea. He says, "I found it on the shore, years ago. I have kept it in my cell, but I do not need it any more." You need it. He turns and walks away, and you hold the cross in your hands. It is light, almost weightless, and the wood is warm from his touch. You set it on your desk, beside the ink pot, and you look at it while you work. The cross is not beautiful. It is rough, uneven, the work of a hand that was not skilled, but it is there, and it is yours, and it holds the darkness at bay. The weeks pass, the days are short, the nights long, and the cold is a constant presence, a weight that never lifts. You learn to live with the darkness, to move through it without fear, to trust that the candle will burn and the bell will ring and the light will return. You learn to pray in the dark, the words soft, the breath shallow, the prayer a thread that holds you to the mat, to the cell, to the abbey. You learn that the darkness is not an enemy. It is a veil, and behind the veil is the light, waiting. One evening you stand at the window of your cell, looking out at the loch. The water is dark, almost black, reflecting the stars. The wind is still, and the waves are quiet, and the world is a bowl of silence. You hold the driftwood cross in your hands, and you pray. You do not know the words. You do not have the words. You do not have the words, but you pray anyway, and the prayer is a kind of hope, and the hope is a kind of light. The bell rings for Compline. You go to the church, and you stand in your place at the back, and you sing. Your voice is not loud, But it is there, and it is enough. The chant rises and falls, and you rise and fall with it, and the darkness presses against the windows, but the candles hold it back, and the voices hold it back, and you are not alone. After complying, you go to the warming room. The fire is burning, and the monks are gathered on the benches, their faces soft in the firelight. Brother Finan is telling a story about a saint who walked on water. Brother Eogan is sketching a bird on a scrap of parchment. Brother Aidan is mending a harness, his fingers moving slowly, patiently. The abbot is in his corner, his eyes closed, his lips moving in a prayer that no one can hear. You sit among them, and you are warm, and you are safe. And the darkness outside the walls is far away. You hold the driftwood cross in your hands, and you feel the smooth wood, the worn edges, the warmth of the fire. You think of Brother Colum, who gave you the cross, who taught you that the darkness is a teacher. You think of the darkness pressing against the walls, waiting. You are not afraid. Not any more. The fear is still there, but it is a small thing, a stone in your pocket, a weight that you carry without noticing. The cross is in your hands, and the prayer is in your breath, and the light is in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. The bell rings for vigils. You rise and you go to the church, and you stand in your place at the back, and you sing. The voices rise and fall, and you rise and fall with them, and the night is long, and the candles are burning, and the darkness is deep, but the light is deeper. You close your eyes, and you pray. The snow comes in February, though February in the Highlands is only a name for the month when the cold deepens, and the light, what little there is, seems to come from somewhere else. You wake to a silence that is different from the silence of the dark. It is muffled, thick, as if the world has been wrapped in wool. The window is grey, but the grey is not the grey of dawn. It is the grey of cloud, low and heavy, pressing against the glass. You rise from your mattress, pull on your habit, and go to the door. When you open it, the snow is already halfway up the stone step, and more is falling, the flakes small and hard, driven by a wind that comes from the north. The cloister is a white desert. The flags are buried, the arches are framed with drifts, and the garden is a smooth, featureless field. You cannot see the loch. You cannot see the hills. The world has shrunk to the walls of the abbey, and the walls themselves seem to be dissolving into the whiteness. The bell rings for prime, but the sound is deadened, swallowed by the snow before it can reach the corners of the courtyard. You walk to the church, your feet sinking, your habit wet to the knees, and you find the monks already gathered, their faces grey, their breath steaming. The abbot announces that the offices will be shortened. The snow is too deep for anyone to leave the cloister, and the path to the well is already lost. The monks will stay within the walls, pray in the church, eat in the refectory, and wait. The snow may last for a day, or 3, or a week. No one knows. The last blizzard, 20 years ago, trapped the monks for 9 days. They ate the last of the bread on the 7th day, and on the 8th, a lay brother walked to the village on snowshoes and came back with flour. The abbot does not tell you this to frighten you. He tells you so that you will understand that the abbey has survived worse, and that it will survive this. You spend the morning in the scriptorium, but the light is too dim for copying. The windows are covered with snow, and the candles cast more shadow than illumination. Brother Colum sets aside his quill and begins to mend a torn page, his needle moving slowly, his eyes close to the parchment. Brother Eogan does not even try to paint. He sits by the small iron stove that the scribes are allowed in winter, his hands wrapped around a clay cup, his eyes on the flames. You sit with them, and you do not speak. The silence is not the silence of work. It is the silence of waiting, of listening, of wondering whether the snow will ever stop. At midday, the bell rings for sext, but the bell is faint, and the monks who gather in the church are fewer than usual. Some are too old to brave the cold. Some are in the warming room, huddled around the hearth. You stand in your place at the back, and you sing the psalms with the others, and your voice is small, but it is there. The chant rises and falls, and the snow falls beyond the windows, and the world is white, and you are here. The afternoon is spent in the warming room. The fire is high, and the room is crowded, and the smell of wet wool and steam and bread fills the air. Brother Finan has brought a pot of porridge from the kitchen, and the monks eat it standing, their bowls warm in their hands. Brother Aidan tells a story about a shepherd who was caught in a blizzard on the hills and survived by digging a cave in a drift and staying there until the snow melted. Brother Iogan draws a picture of the shepherd in the ashes of the hearth, a stick figure with a crooked staff. The abbot smiles, and you have never seen him smile before. It is a small smile, barely a movement of his lips, but it changes his face, makes him look younger, softer, less like an abbot and more like a man. The snow does not stop. It falls through the night, and you wake to find the window completely covered, the cell dark even at dawn. You light your candle, and you go to the church, and you sing. The voices are tired, but they are there, and they are enough. The chant rises and falls, and the snow falls beyond the walls, and the world is white, and you are here. On the second day, the lay brothers dig a tunnel from the cloister to the kitchen. The snow is deeper than a man's height in some places, and they work in shifts, their breath steaming, their faces red. You are not allowed to help. The abbot says that the choir monks are needed for prayer, not for digging, but you stand at the window of the scriptorium and watch them, the dark shapes moving in the white, and you feel a kind of envy. Their work is visible, tangible. They are fighting the snow, and you are only waiting. On the third day, the snow stops. The silence is sudden, shocking, and you rush to the window. The glass is still covered, but you can see light through it, a pale glow that was not there before. You go to the cloister, and the tunnel is still there, and the snow is still deep, but the sky is clear, and the sun is a pale disk behind the clouds. The monks gather in the church to give thanks, and the chant is louder than it has been in days. The voice is strong, the psalms bright. You sing with them, and your voice is not small. It is full, and it is yours, and it is enough. The snow melts slowly, the tunnels collapse, the paths reappear, and the loch is revealed, dark and still, reflecting the clouds. The well is uncovered, and the water is sweet, and the bread is fresh from the oven, and the world is new. You stand at the edge of the garden, looking at the bare beds, the brown stalks, the patches of snow that still cling to the wall. Brother Finan comes to stand beside you. He says, "The herbs survived. They always survive. The cold kills the weak, but the strong come back in the spring." He points to a small green shoot, no bigger than your thumb, pushing through the soil. That is Angelica. It will be tall by June. It will heal the coughs that the winter left behind. He smiles, and you smile, and you are grateful. You go to the scriptorium, and you take your place at your desk. The light is still grey, but it is enough. You rule your lines, dip your quill, and begin to write. Et lux in tenebris, lucet tenebra non comprende unt. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. You write the words slowly, carefully, and the letters are steady, the spacing even, the curves soft. You are learning. You are still learning. The snow is melting, and the light is returning, and you are still here. That evening, after Vespers, you stand at the window of your cell and look out at the loch. The water is dark, the stars are bright, and the wind is soft. The snow is gone, but the cold remains, and the darkness is still deep. But the light is in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. You hold the driftwood cross in your hands, and you pray. You do not know the words. You do not have the words. But you pray anyway, and the prayer is a kind of hope, and the hope is a kind of light. The bell rings for Compline. You go to the church, and you stand in your place at the back, and you sing. Your voice is not loud, but it is there, and it is enough. The chant rises and falls, and you rise and fall with it. And the night is long, and the candles are burning, and the darkness is deep. But the light is deeper. After Compline, you go to the warming room. The fire is burning, and the monks are gathered on the benches, their faces soft in the firelight. Brother Finan is telling a story about a monk who was lost in the snow and found his way back by following the sound of the bell. Brother Iogan is sketching a bird on a scrap of parchment. Brother Aidan is mending a harness, his fingers moving slowly, patiently. The abbot is in his corner, his eyes closed, his lips moving in a prayer that no one can hear. You sit among them, and you are warm and you are safe, and the snow is gone, and the spring is coming. You close your eyes and you pray. Brother Colum tells you of the cave on the far shore of the loch one afternoon, when the light is golden and the wind is soft. You are in the scriptorium, rubbing out a mistake with a pumice stone, and he is sitting at his desk, his quill still, his eyes on the window. He says, "Before the abbey was built, there was a hermit who lived in a cave across the water. His name was Cuthbert, or so the old stories say. He came from the north, from the islands, and he lived alone for 30 years. He ate fish from the loch and berries from the hills, and he prayed." The monks who founded this place found his cave when they were looking for a site. They left it untouched, as a reminder. He pauses, and you wait. He says, "I have never been there. I have always wanted to go. But my legs are old, and the path is steep, and the boat leaks. Perhaps you will go for me." You ask the abbot for permission to visit the cave. He looks at you for a long time, his eyes tired, his face unreadable. He says, "The cave is a place of silence. The hermit chose it because he wanted to be alone with God. If you go, do not go as a pilgrim. The hermit chose it because he wanted to be alone with God. If you go, do not go as a tourist. Go as a pilgrim. Take nothing with you but your prayer." He gives you a day from dawn to dusk, and he tells you that you may borrow the small coracle that the lay brothers use for fishing. You wake before dawn and you walk to the shore. The coracle is tied to a stone post, its hide covered dark with damp, its wooden frame worn smooth. You push it into the water and climb in, the boat rocking beneath you, the waves lapping against the sides. The oars are heavy and your arms are weak from the scriptorium. But you pull, and the boat moves, and the abbey grows smaller behind you. The loch is dark and still, the water black as ink, and the hills rise on either side, their slopes covered with heather that is brown and purple. The mist is low, and the far shore is hidden, and you row toward the place where Brother Colum said the cave would be. The journey takes longer than you expected. The loch is wider than it looks from the abbey, and the wind is against you, and the oars are clumsy in your hands. But you do not stop. You pull, and the boat moves, and the abbey disappears, and the hills close in, and you are alone on the water, with nothing but the sound of the oars, and the cry of the gulls, and the soft lapping of the waves. The cave appears suddenly, as if the loch has decided to let you see it. It is a dark opening in the face of a low cliff, half hidden by a curtain of ivy, its mouth just above the waterline. You row toward it, the boat scraping against the rocks, and you tie the coracle to a root that hangs from the cliff. The climb is steep, the rock wet and slippery, and you pull yourself up, your hands raw, your knees scraping. The cave is small, barely a hollow in the stone, but there is a flat space where a man might have slept, and a shelf where a man might have placed a cross, and a spring that seeps from the rock and drips into a shallow basin. You sit on the stone floor, and you listen. The silence is not the silence of the abbey, which is full of the echoes of prayer and the distant sound of the bells. It is a deeper silence, a silence that has been here for centuries, waiting. The water drips from the spring, 1 drop, 2 drops, 3, and the sound is loud in the stillness. You close your eyes and you breathe. The prayer comes to you without effort, the words soft, the breath slow. "Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner." You say it once, twice, 100 times, and the cave holds the words, absorbs them, makes them part of the stone. You open your eyes and you look at the walls. There are marks on them, faint scratches that could be letters or could be nothing. You trace them with your finger, and you think you see a name, Cuthbert. Or perhaps it is only the shape of the rock, the play of light and shadow. You do not know. You do not need to know. The hermit was here, and he prayed, and his prayer is still in the stone, still in the water, still in the silence. You stay in the cave for hours. The light through the opening shifts, the shadows lengthen, and the water drips, and the prayer is in your breath, and the silence is in your ears. You think of the hermit, alone for 30 years, with nothing but the loch and the hills and the sky. You think of his hands, rough from the oars, his face weathered by the wind, his eyes bright with the vision of God. You think of the choice he made, to leave the world, to live in a hole in the rock, to wait for a death that would come in its own time. You do not know if you could do it. You do not know if you would want to, but you are here in his cave, and his silence is your silence, and his prayer is your prayer. You leave the cave when the light begins to fade. You climb down to the coracle, untie the rope, and push off. The loch is dark, the hills are black, and the abbey is a distant glow on the far shore. You row, and the oars are heavy, and your arms ache, but you do not stop. The stars appear, and the wind is cold, and the water is dark, but you are not afraid. The cave is behind you, and the abbey is ahead, and the prayer is in your breath. The lay brothers are waiting on the shore. They help you pull the coracle onto the stones, and they do not ask where you have been. They only nod, and they walk away, and you are alone with the loch, and the stars, and the silence. You go to the church for compline, and you stand in your place at the back, and you sing. Your voice is tired, but it is there, and it is enough. The chant rises and falls, and you rise and fall with it, and you think of the hermit in his cave, singing the psalms to the walls, and you think of the monks in the choir, singing the same psalms to the same God. The cave and the abbey are not so different. The cave and the abbey are not so different. The silence and the song are the same. After compline, you go to your cell. You lie on the mattress, the blanket pulled to your chin, and you stare at the wooden cross. You do not pray. You think of the cave, the spring, the marks on the wall. You think of the hermit, his 30 years, his silence, his prayer. You think of Brother Colum, who has never been to the cave but who knows it in his heart. You think of the abbot, who called you a pilgrim, who told you to take nothing but your prayer. You took nothing and you brought nothing back, but you are not the same. The cave has changed you. The silence has changed you. The prayer has changed you. The silence has changed you. The prayer has changed you. The bell rings, 3 strokes, the night watch. You count them, and then the silence returns. You turn on your side, pull the blanket higher, and close your eyes. The water is dripping in the cave, and the stars are reflected in the loch, and the hermit is sleeping in the stone. You sleep, and you dream of the cave, and the spring, and the light that shines in the darkness, and the darkness does not overcome it. In the morning, you go to the scriptorium. Brother Colum is at his desk, his quill moving, his eyes on the page. He does not look up when you enter. You take your place, rule your lines, dip your quill. You write the words you have written 1,000 times. Et lox in tenebris lucet, et tenebrae eam non comprenderunt. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. You write them slowly, carefully, and the letters are steady, the spacing even, the curves soft. Brother Colum looks up and he says, "You went to the cave." You nod. He says, "And what did you find?" You say, "I found silence." He nods, and he returns to his work. The day passes, the bells ring, and you go to the church, and you sing. The chant is the same, the psalms are the same, but you are different. The cave is in you, the silence is in you, the hermit is in you. You are not alone. You have never been alone. The cave and the abbey are the same place, and the silence and the song are the same prayer, and the prayer is a thread that connects you to all who have come before and all who will come after. That evening, you stand at the window of your cell and look out at the loch. The water is dark, the stars are bright, and the wind is soft. The far shore is hidden, but you know the cave is there, waiting. You hold the driftwood cross in your hands, and you pray. You do not know the words. You do not have the words. You do not have the words. But you pray anyway, and the prayer is a kind of hope, and the hope is a kind of light. The bell rings for compline. You go to the church, and you stand in your place at the back, and you sing. Your voice is not loud, but it is there, and it is enough. The chant rises and falls, and you rise and fall with it, and the night is long, and the candles are burning, and the darkness is deep, but the light is deeper. After compline, you go to the warming room. The fire is burning, and the monks are gathered on the benches, their faces soft in the firelight. Brother Finan is telling a story about a saint who lived in a cave and was fed by an angel. Brother Iogan is sketching a wave on a scrap of parchment. Brother Iogan is mending a harness, his fingers moving slowly, patiently. The abbot is in his corner, his eyes closed, his lips moving in a prayer that no one can hear. You sit among them, and you are warm, and you are safe. And the cave is far away, but it is also here, in the silence between the words, in the pause after the story, in the breath before the prayer. You close your eyes, and you pray. The feast of St. Columba falls on the 9th day of June, when the light is soft, and the nights are short, and the air smells of salt and wild roses. You have been a novice for a year, and the time has come to decide. The abbot called you to his cell 3 days ago. His hands folded on the desk, his eyes tired but kind. He said, "You have prayed with us, worked with us, eaten with us, slept in the cell that was given to you. You have learned the rule of Saint Benedict. You have sat with the dying and dug graves and woven baskets and copied the Gospels. Now you must choose. Will you take the vows of stability, obedience, and conversion of life? Will you remain with us for the rest of your days?" You did not answer immediately. You looked at the wooden cross on the wall of his cell, the same cross that hangs in every cell, and you thought of the loch, the cave, the sheep, the snow. You thought of Brother Tad, dying in the infirmary, his last breath a sigh. You thought of Brother Finian, the pilgrim from Iona, his boat disappearing into the mist. You thought of the bells that have marked every hour of every day, the bells that have become the pulse of your life. You said, "I will stay." The abbot nodded. He said, "Then on the feast of St. Columba you will profess your vows. Prepare yourself. The days between now and then are for prayer and reflection. You may speak to the brothers if you need guidance, but mostly you should be silent. The silence is the womb from which the vows are born. You have spent the 3 days in silence, not the silence of the cell, which is full of the sound of your own breathing and the distant lapping of the waves, but a deeper silence, a silence that you have carried with you to the church, to the scriptorium, to the garden. The monks have respected your silence. They have not spoken to you unless necessary. Even Brother Finan, who hums when he works, has been quiet, his hum replaced by a soft whistling that is barely a sound at all. You have prayed, though the prayer has been more listening than speaking. You have listened to the bells, to the chant, to the wind, to the water. You have listened to the silence, and the silence has listened to you. The feast day begins with the Mass of St. Columba. The church is decorated with flowers, white and blue, the colours of the sea, and the candles are lit even in the daytime, and the incense is thick and sweet. You stand in your place at the back, as you have always stood, but today you are not a spectator. Today you are the centre. The abbot calls you forward, and you walk to the altar, your steps slow, your heart pounding. You kneel on the stone floor, and the abbot stands before you, holding a book, the Rule of Saint Benedict, its leather cover worn, its pages soft with age. He says, "Brother, do you promise stability in this monastery, obedience to the abbot and the rule, and conversion of life, turning always toward God?" You say, "I do." He says, "Do you renounce the world, its honors, its possessions, its vanities?" You say, "I do." He says, "Do you accept the poverty, the chastity, the obedience that the rule requires?" You say, "I do." He hands you the book, and you hold it in your hands. It is heavier than you expected, heavier than the Psalter, heavier than any book you have ever held. You open it, and you read the first words, "Ausculta, O Fili, Preceptor Magistri." Listen, O my son, to the precepts of the Master. The words blur, and you close the book. The abbot takes it from you and places it on the altar. He takes a white cowl, a garment you have never worn, and he places it over your head. The wool is soft, warm, and it falls to your feet. He says, "Receive the garment of the monastic life. Wear it as a sign of your commitment, your humility, your hope." He steps back, and the monks begin to sing. The Veni Creator, the ancient hymn to the Holy Spirit. Veni, Creator Spiritus, mentes tuorum visita. Come, Creator Spirit, visit the minds of your people. You kneel, your head bowed, and you listen. The voices rise and fall, and you rise and fall with them, and you feel something that you have not felt before. It is not joy, not peace, not certainty. It is the feeling of being held, of being carried, of being part of something larger than yourself. The hymn ends, and the abbot gives you the kiss of peace. He leans forward and touches his lips to your forehead, and the gesture is so gentle, so unexpected, that tears come to your eyes. You do not wipe them away. You let them fall. The monks come forward, one by one, and each one gives you the kiss of peace. Brother Colum, his hands trembling, his eyes pale. Brother Eogan, who smiles and whispers, "Welcome, brother." Brother Finan, who hubs you, his round belly pressing against your new cowl, his breath warm on your cheek. Brother Aidan, his hands rough from the shearing, his touch gentle. The abbot, last of all, his tired eyes wet, his voice soft. They come and they go, and you stand at the altar, your tears drying on your face, your heart full of something you cannot name. The Mass continues, the Eucharist, the bread and wine that become the body and blood of Christ. You receive the host on your tongue, the wine in a golden cup, and you taste the bread and the wine, and they taste like the bread and wine you have tasted 100 times before. But today, they taste different. Today, they taste like home. After the Mass, the monks process to the refectory for the feast. The tables are covered with white cloths, the flowers are on the window ledges, and the air smells of roast meat and fresh bread and honey. You sit at the table, not at the end, not near the door, but in the middle, among the other monks. Brother Eogan sits beside you, and Brother Finan sits across from you, and you eat, and you drink, and you listen to the reading. Today the lector reads from the life of St. Columba, the story of his voyage to Iona, his battle with the monster of the loch, his visions of angels. You listen and you think of the cave, the hermit, the silence. You think of the loch, dark and still, reflecting the clouds. You think of the bells that have called you to prayer 1,000 times, that will call you 1,000 more. You are not the same person who arrived at the gate a year ago, wet and tired and afraid. You have been shaped by the wind and the rain and the prayer, and you are still here, and that is enough. After the meal, the monks go to the cloister. The sun is warm, and the garden is full of flowers. The roses that Brother Finan tends with such care, the lavender that lines the path. The old monk with the harp comes out, and he plays, and the monks dance. Not a formal dance, not a dance of steps and patterns, but a simple movement, a swaying, a turning, a lifting of the hands. You watch them for a while, and then Brother Eogan takes your hand and pulls you into the circle. You do not know how to dance. You have never danced, but you move with the others, your feet stumbling, your arms uncertain, and you laugh. You laugh because the sun is warm, because the music is sweet, because you are alive, because you have chosen to stay. The dance is not a dance of steps and patterns. It is a dance of joy, of release, of gratitude. You dance, and the monks dance with you, and the bells ring for vespers, and the dance ends, and you go to the church. You stand in the choir today. Not at the back, not near the door, but in the stalls, among the other monks. Your place is near the end, next to Brother Eogan, and you open your psalter to the right page, and you sing. The chant is the same chant you have sung every day for a year, but today it is yours in a way it never was before. The words are not just words, they are your words, your prayer, your life. Deus in adiutorium meum, intend. God, come to my assistance. You sing, and the other monks sing with you, and the voices rise and fall, and you are not alone. You have never been alone. After compline, you go to your cell. The cell is the same, the narrow bed, the straw mattress, the wooden cross on the wall. But the cross is different today. There is a small carving on it, a figure of Christ, his head bowed, his hands open. You have never noticed it before. You sit on the edge of the bed, and you look at the cross, and you think of the vows you have taken. Stability. You will not leave this place. Obedience. You will listen to the abbot, to the rule, to the bells. Conversion of life. You will turn always toward God, even when you do not know where God is, even when you are not sure that God exists. The vows are not a destination, they are a direction. They are the road you have chosen to walk, one day at a time, one prayer at a time, one small act of work or silence or love. You lie on the mattress, the blanket pulled to your chin, and you stare at the wooden cross. You do not pray, you listen to the silence. The silence is not empty. It is full of the voices of the monks, the echo of the chant, the memory of the dance. It is full of the smell of the garden, the taste of the bread, the warmth of the sun. It is full of the presence of God, if God is present, or the absence of God, if God is absent. You do not know. You do not need to know. You only need to be here, in this place, at this time, with these men who have become your brothers. You close your eyes and you sleep. The bell for vigils rings. You rise in the dark and you go to the church. The monks are already in their stalls, and you take your place and you open your psalter. The chant begins and you sing. The words rise from your throat, like water from a spring, like grain from the soil, like a prayer that has been waiting for you all your life. Domine, labia mea peris. Lord, open my lips. And you open your lips, and you sing, and the night is long, and the bells are ringing, and you are home. In the morning you wake to the light. It is grey light, the light of dawn, and the small window is a square of gold. You kneel on the mat, and you pray. The prayer is already there, in your chest, in your throat, in your breath. You do not need to say the words. The breath is the prayer. You sit in the silence, your eyes closed, your hands folded, and you let the prayer pray itself. You eat your bread, drink your water, and go to the door. The loch is dark, the hills are grey, and the mist is rolling in from the sea. The gulls are calling, and the wind is soft, and the heather is wet under your feet. You are not the same person who arrived at the gate a year ago. You have been shaped by the wind and the rain and the prayer, and you are still here, and that is enough. You take the palm fronds and you begin to weave.